factor, you have the right people put together the right kind of message that would make it so that, people either don't believe that we are receiving transmissions, maybe they think that it's a big hoax. Maybe they think that it's a hoax by China, like some people probably think global warming is. You have somebody craft a message the right way. All the information in the world is not going to convince the stakeholders that you need, in some cases, to actually do a mission, because the bigger the project, the more stakeholders you need. And this could turn into something where, on the face of it, this seems like something that would be great for humanity. Let's go on the most dangerous but rewarding exploration ever in human history. But then you could have it where even it could look like something that's just really horrible because it's used too many resources, it's polluting things, it's creating just so much social change just by its own existence.
Seth Shostak felt it would be in our human nature to want to connect, but pointed out that it would be unlikely for us to come across a civilization at the same stage of development as us.
Well, that kind of sounds like the prime directive of Star Trek. You find another civilization, you don't interfere with them. I think the prime directive is kind of like the, prime stake. I mean, I think it's interesting, but not terribly germane, because you look at the history of humans, and in particular human exploration, and that's what looking for life in space is. It's exploration. And you say, well, how often was it the case that we found an island with a previously unknown culture there, and we just didn't interfere with it at all? I think the answer to that is never. So, I can hardly believe that we would abide by the prime directive. And the chances of finding some society that's out there that it's more or less at our level, which is what happens all the time in the movies and on TV. That's always the way it happens. So we can fight them or, abduct them for breeding experiments or whatever. I mean, that's just extraordinarily unlikely. That would be like you're a chess player, and you have a ranking of whatever your ranking is, 187. I don't know if that's even a ranking, but and you just walk down the street and you grab the first person you find and say, "Do you play chess?" They say no, but you grab 30 people, and you finally find somebody who plays chess, and you say, "What's your ranking?" And their ranking turns out to be exactly the same as yours. That's very, very unlikely. Okay, so I think that finding another society that's just at our level of development is like me winning the lottery.
This brings us back to the question of why. Why would someone want to go and take on this much risk when the reward might be frustratingly minimal? We spoke to Kathryn Denning about this.
I guess the question there is, are they doing it for some kind of near-term profit on Earth? Are they doing it for some kind of long-term power advantage, again, on Earth? Or are they doing it for purely idealistic objectives? Let's just assume that the finances available are near infinite, because they would need to be. I can imagine that you could make a heck of a lot of profit in the short term by selling media rights to such a thing. Indeed, this is probably going to play into any corporate Mars missions. So that's easily imaginable. In terms of power advantages, I suppose somebody thinking very long term might be trying to build alliances between star systems or something. Again, hard to see that from here. In terms of purely ideological objectives or idealistic objectives, I can imagine that somebody who believes in the sanctity of life anywhere and everywhere might say that, life forms should meet each other. They should do what life does, which is meet, hang out, find new relationships, forge something new. There could be some kind of new symbiotic possibilities. I'm kind of speaking metaphorically here rather than very literally. I can imagine as well that there could be a religious objective. So missionaries have been doing what they do for a long time, and that's because they believe so fervently in the importance of the afterlife and helping other beings to get there. So I can imagine any of those motivations being strong enough. And in terms of, say, a scientist wanting to go or another person wanting to go, I can understand just the sheer overwhelming weight of curiosity about who are these other beings. I really want to know them. I can understand that. Those things all make sense.
Perhaps we don't need to be focused on the final goal. Dr. Aaron Zimmerman at the Canadian Institute for Theoretical Astrophysics believes that we could make incredible discoveries on our way to the nearest star.
Long before we get to the distant stars, because we're really talking about mind-boggling distances just to the nearest star, the first step is to build an infrastructure of space travel in our own solar system. And really, I think that's just as exciting or more than these exoplanets, because within our own solar system, there are alien worlds which may well harbor life. They're just as likely, I think, to harbor life as any of the nearby exoplanets. Things like Europa, right, Jupiter's moon, which has a liquid ocean almost certainly under an icy surface. And some of the other moons of Jupiter or moons of the other giant planets are great targets for at least life. Obviously, if there was an advanced civilization on those bodies, we would know about it by now. But if we're just looking for life and we're just looking to explore our surroundings in space, I think the first step is to really get an infrastructure up there to build ships, to do things in space, to explore our own near neighborhood.
Even in our own solar system, the shift in focus to our off-Earth's resources could have a profound effect on our Earthbound lives. We spoke with Ray Adams about asteroid mining. He suggests that we could ease the pressure on our terrestrial resources by looking to space.
Jeff Bezos talks a lot about rezoning Earth as light industrial, and that's something that really resonates with me. Is, you know, as much of the work that we can take off planet that's heavy industrial type stuff, like let's do it and let's figure out a way to get all the materials that we need and all, you know, rely on in today's society, but, you know, start to look for other sources where some of the issues in the past of, you know, environmental concerns aren't as much of an issue.
We've been talking to other people about the potential for sending life very far away, and pretty much uniformly so far. We've talked to about 5 people so far, and pretty much people have been like, that's a bad idea. It would be just much better to like send the instructions for the human genome and a 3D printer. Like that might even be easier than sending along like a whole self-contained environment that far out. What's your perspective on that?
Have you been to Paris?
Yeah.
Have you taken your robotic adjunct to Paris instead of you going? And why not? You know,
I want to go.
Paris.
That's Dr. John Rummel, an astrobiologist at East Carolina University.
The idea that you're going to send, you know, some 3D printer and have them magically make something that's charming is one thing. But I really do think it's important that if we envision that there are other cultures out there, that we meet them with our best possible feet forward. How many ever they have, how many ever we want to pretend we have. My 3-year-old has always got 4, you know. I mean, but it's one of those things that, you know, it's not something you can, if you're going to spend the time and energy to do this, because it's very energetically difficult. It's not a very practical thing to do at all. It's certainly much more practical to do it with a self-contained, potentially self-replicating group of humans who are all motivated to explore, rather than to send off a machine and hope it goes well. Because depending on exactly what that 3D printer is going to print, you know, hey, guess what? We printed this really cool virus. It's called polio. You know, and not everybody's going to be happy to get whatever you send. It's nice to have a little bit of near real-time ability to adapt. And adaptability has got to be the major human trait that's necessary in such an undertaking.
But perhaps we've gotten a little far from the question of who goes. Joel Meyers encapsulated the mission.
The real trick comes in when something is aging. And so the challenge when you have humans in both positions, both on the craft and on Earth, is that they age at differential rates. And so because people have finite lifetimes, they tend to die when there's long periods of time that are elapsed in one place or the other. In this case, if it's just the genetic material, if it's just the code, you sort of circumvent that problem. You might still run into the difficulty that the people who have planned the mission and started the mission in motion don't get to experience the results. On the other hand, you don't have the unfortunate consequence of the people who you actually sent to do the work having died, or the civilization, in the case that it's a multi-generational ship that you send, the civilization will have no chance of dying out because it's just the information that needs to be sent.
Is our real priority with this mission just the simple transfer of information? What is our goal with going? Is it scientific discovery, or are we more attached to the mythic story that surrounds this voyage and human exploration?
I think my take-homes when I'm speaking with public audiences about space or with students about space is that it's very easy to get caught up in the human story, the idea of traveling to a new world, the idea of meeting aliens. But these take on such mythic proportions. That's why they're so compelling as narratives and why they're so absorbing as narratives.
And to close us out, Dr. Kathryn Denning.
But I think what tends to get left out when we let ourselves fall in love with the stories of space, we forget the revenge effects of technology. So technology created for one thing can be used for another. I mean, we forget that the birth of space travel occurred with the creation of V2s in factories in Germany, where people were assembling these things under horrific conditions and dying by the scores. That was right there the beginning technology for spaceflight. And it's so easy to forget all the dark sides as we think about the happy, shiny stuff. And if we think about the technologies that will be necessary for solar system colonization or beyond, those things are going to transform human beings and environments in ways that are difficult for us to comprehend right now, and even harder to see the potential consequences for Earth. So for every space journey story, there's a story about what happens to everybody left behind. And that's not just the human beings, that's everything else and everyone else on this planet. So that's something that I always try to get people to think about at the same time as they're thinking about the glory of a human footprint on another world. I'd like them to think about all the footprints here.
This has been Transmission Podcast, hosted by Cecilia Lynn Jacobs and produced by Ian Garrett and Kate Ladenheim, with special thanks to today's guests:
Kathryn Denning,
Pippa Goldschmidt,
Beth Billar,
Aaron Zimmerman,
Dr. Duncan Forgan,
Seth Shostak,
Phil Surles,
Joel Meyers,
Christine Corbet Moran,
Dr. Jacqueline Green,
John Rummel,
Alires Almon,
Ray Adams.
Original composition and sound editing by Miles Avery. Transmission is a podcast and performance series speculating on what might happen if we began to receive the popular broadcasts of intelligent alien life, and follows two sisters selected to lead an interstellar mission to make first contact. Learn more about our team and upcoming performances at luxterra.com, and find us on Facebook and Twitter at Luxterra. That's LUXTATERRA. Transmission is a production of Toaster Lab in Canada and is a fiscally sponsored project of Fractured Atlas in the United States.